In a school where silence meant survival and smiles came with conditions, Malika Dawson walked in alone. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Eyes found her anyway, scanning, sorting, deciding. It was Heritage Week at Hollow Creek High, but not everyone's legacy was welcome. By the time she reached her homeroom, the social order had already taken its first hit, because Malika wasn't here to belong. She was here to endure, and quietly, to watch. What she saw would change everything. The hallway quieted the moment Malika Dawson crossed the threshold, like the school itself took a breath to judge her. The smell of freshly waxed floors clung to the air, mingling with traces of cologne, lip gloss, and early morning tension. Hollow Creek High looked like something out of a brochure: gleaming tile, banners celebrating Heritage Week, and locker rows lined like disciplined soldiers. It wasn't her first new school, but it might have been the quietest. Her boots made almost no sound as she walked, but she could feel it. The shift in conversations, the half-second pauses, the glances pretending not to be. It reminded her of something her grandmother used to say, spoken over sweet tea and muted news. Quiet don't mean weak. It just means you're watching. And she was. Malika moved carefully, her eyes scanning the cafeteria-style social order forming around her. To the left, cheerleaders clustered by the mirrors, flicking their ponytails and checking their smiles. To the right, a loud circle of varsity jackets and snapbacks, jocks, already ruling the corridor with easy swagger. Debate kids huddled near the vending machines, words flying faster than hands could unwrap granola bars. And then, scattered along lockers like forgotten bookends, the invisible ones, the ones no one talked to unless forced to in lab pairings. She didn't slow, didn't break stride. Just walked straight to room 204, homeroom, and stepped inside. The room wasn't loud, but it was full. Dozens of faces, none familiar, turned in a quiet ripple as she entered. She knew that look. Not curiosity. Inventory. The way people assessed what box you fit into, before you said a word. The teacher, Mr. Green, paused in taking attendance and cleared his throat. "Ah, class, we have a new student joining us today. Malika Dawson." He gestured to an empty seat beside a girl with sleek black hair and a maroon windbreaker zipped up to her chin. The girl looked up, soft eyes, then quickly down again. Malika nodded once, slid into the seat. The desk still had tape residue from someone else's nameplate. The pencil groove held a single broken eraser. The hush didn't vanish. It simply thinned out into murmurs. She could make out pieces. Transfer? From Eastmont, I think. She looks like she's been through stuff. Her fingers wrapped around her pen, not too tight, just enough to remind herself she was here. She had a reason, and she didn't owe anyone anything. Next to her, the girl, Kayla, according to the seating chart, glanced sideways and offered a quick, polite smile. "Hi," she said under her breath. "Welcome." Malika gave a subtle nod. "Thanks." And that was it. No fireworks, no welcome wagon. But not cold, either. Just cautious. The kind of friendliness that waited to see how the rest of the room responded before going any further. The door creaked behind them. Ms. Owens, head of student discipline, walked in to place a sealed envelope on Mr. Green's desk. She didn't say a word, didn't pause, but as she turned to leave, her eyes locked with Malika's, steady, unreadable, almost familiar. It lasted a second, maybe less, but Malika noticed. The rest of homeroom passed in a blur of locker assignments, upcoming pep rally announcements, and half-hearted attempts at small talk. Malika wrote her name on the corner of her notebook in block letters, once, then outlined the edges until they turned bold. As the final bell rang, students gathered their things. Someone behind her, not loud, but loud enough, muttered, "Let's see how long she lasts this time." Malika didn't turn, didn't flinch. She just uncapped her pen and drew a line under her name. Across the room, Logan Whitaker glanced up from his phone. His smirk was almost too subtle to notice. Almost. She just wanted a quiet seat. Instead, she sat at the center of a game she didn't ask to play. The cafeteria buzzed under the fluorescent lights, every inch soaked in that distinct hum of teenage politics. Tables gleamed, trays clattered, and somewhere near the middle of the room, someone's laugh rose just a bit too loud. Sharp, performative. Malika hovered near the entrance for a moment, scanning the layout like a chessboard. She didn't need to be told which table was which. The hierarchy arranged itself. The jocks, boys in maroon and gray Letterman jackets, held court in the middle. Cheerleaders radiated from them like planets in orbit. The rest, debate kids, AP overachievers, and the soft-voiced loners, gravitated toward the edges. Malika moved left, tray in hand, toward a near-empty table in the corner. It wasn't marked off-limits, but something about the emptiness, the way other students passed it by without a glance, should have been a clue. She sat anyway, setting her tray down with a gentle clink. The pasta was lukewarm, oversauced. She ignored it. 2 seats away, someone shifted. Then came a voice, light, pleasant, and just loud enough to carry. Didn't realize this was open to just anybody. She looked up. Logan Whitaker stood at the head of the table, hands in pockets, half smile on his face. Behind him loomed Troy Sanderson, arms crossed, chewing gum like it owed him money. A few others lingered nearby, watching with predatory interest. Malika didn't respond. She didn't frown. She didn't speak. Logan stepped forward. His foot caught the edge of the table. A calculated stumble. His hip bumped the corner just enough to jostle her tray. The fork clinked. A grape rolled off the plate, landed near her shoe. "Oh," he said with mock surprise. "My bad." The smirk that followed was subtle, but not subtle enough to miss. A few chuckles drifted from the surrounding tables. Malika blinked once, then slowly stood. She picked up the tray, steadied it, and walked toward another table near the far wall, one even more forgotten than the first. Before sitting, she glanced back at the spot she'd just left. Her eyes lingered not on Logan, but the seat itself. Then she turned away. Kayla sat 2 tables over. Her eyes met Malika's for a second too long. She said nothing. Behind them, Logan's voice rang out, louder this time. "Some people don't know their place." The laughter was louder now, not roaring, just sharp enough to sting. Ms. Owens, seated near the teacher's entrance, didn't flinch. Her gaze drifted toward the commotion, then settled back on her notes without a word. Malika sat, fork in hand, back straight. She took a bite of overcooked pasta, as if nothing had happened. No tremor in her fingers. No change in breathing, just one bite. Then another. Across the room, Logan watched. As the period wound down, trays were cleared, laughter faded, and students began to scatter. Malika stood, gathered her things, and turned. Behind her, something new sat on the seat she'd abandoned. A napkin, creased, folded with purpose, and on its surface, a crude sketch. Hair exaggerated, lips thick, eyes hollowed out. A caricature. Not just offensive. Intentional. Kayla saw it. Her eyes flicked to it, then away. She adjusted her jacket zipper and walked out with the rest. Malika didn't touch the napkin. She didn't look back. The bell rang. When the lunch bell rings and students clear, Ms. Owens quietly picks up the napkin, folds it, and tucks it into her folder without a word. The message was scrawled in red. "Know your place." No name. But it didn't need one. The letters bled across the beige metal, jagged and hurried, still wet around the edges. They stretched over the length of locker 1283, Malika's. The hallway smelled faintly of dry erase marker and disinfectant, but now there was something acidic beneath it. A sharper edge. It was just after 7:48 a.m. The science wing remained quiet this early, save for a handful of students drifting in from the bus lot. Malika stood perfectly still, her backpack slung over one shoulder, a book tucked beneath her arm. Her gaze stayed locked on the letters, not moving, not flinching, only breathing. The echoes of yesterday's cafeteria moment rang in her ears. Logan's voice, tossed out like a paper airplane. Some people don't know their place. Now it had taken form, bolder, less subtle, and intended for everyone to see. Whispers began to float behind her. Is that her locker? Who would even? No one's saying it's about her. But come on. The onlookers didn't offer comfort. They offered curiosity. Slow steps, tilted heads, phones not quite out but ready. Spectators. Always. Malika's fingers shifted slightly against the strap of her backpack. She exhaled once through her nose, quiet and steady, then crouched. From the front pocket, she pulled out a small zippered pouch. Inside, a travel-size bottle of isopropyl alcohol, a folded rag, and a pair of gloves. She put them on like a ritual. No one said a word. The cloth met the marker with a soft squeak. Her movements were unhurried, methodical. The red faded in pieces, one stroke at a time, until only the faintest shadow of the words remained. Then even that was gone. A silence stretched between her and the crowd. Not heavy, but thick enough to cut. Someone muttered something under their breath, but the words didn't stick. The laughter, if there was any, was quiet now. Uneven. From the other end of the hallway, Logan leaned casually against a locker, arms crossed. Troy stood beside him, one hand on his hip, chewing gum too hard. Their postures were rehearsed, but even from where she stood, Malika could sense the strain behind it. "You used to this kind of thing?" Logan called out. She didn't answer. Didn't even turn. He pushed off the locker, took a few slow steps forward. "I mean, you came prepared, like it's not your first message." Malika finally moved, just her eyes. They met his for the first time. She didn't blink, didn't look away. Then she resumed wiping. The rag made small, circular motions, her gloved hands precise. The way someone would clean glass, they wanted to see clearly through again. The sound of her breathing was so faint, it almost blended with the hallway buzz. Troy said something low. Too quiet to catch, but Logan didn't laugh this time. His jaw twitched. When the last streak disappeared, Malika pulled off the gloves, folded the rag neatly, capped the bottle, and placed them all back into the pouch. Then she stood, turned to her locker, and closed it with a sharp final clang. She slung her backpack over her shoulder, pivoted, and walked, straight down the hallway, past Logan, past Troy, past the staring students. Logan's smirk slipped for half a second. That night, Malika gets an email from unknown. Thought you could erase it? Think again. Attached. A photo of her back, taken that morning. The email wasn't a warning. It was a challenge, and Malika didn't plan to lose. The bedroom was dim, lit only by the glow of her laptop and a single desk lamp that hummed faintly against the silence. Outside, the October wind curled around the house like fingers testing the edges of a window pane. Malika sat motionless, one leg tucked beneath her, the other resting firm against the hardwood floor. Her face was lit in cool blue, eyes scanning strings of code and timestamps. The photo had arrived 12 hours earlier. A grainy image of her back in the hallway, clearly taken without her knowledge. And below it, a sentence that still hummed in her chest, like static. Thought you could erase it? Think again. It wasn't just a threat. It was an attempt to remind her of her place. But they had miscalculated. On the left monitor, Hollow Creek's internal school forum sat open. Most students used it to complain about cafeteria food or coordinate club meetings. A few, hiding behind usernames like RealTalkSC and Creek_Truth, used it differently. And Malika had been watching. She clicked into the admin panel, not through a breach, but through a forgotten teacher's demo account, one that someone had once used during a tech literacy seminar. They'd never changed the password. She had remembered it. Tabs multiplied. Each click brought up a new piece: message headers, server logs, forum post metadata. Every digital footprint told a story, if you knew how to read it. She opened the email properties, eyes flicking across the header chain. The IP address was masked, routed through a common VPN, but not the school posts. Those had patterns. One in particular. Every post that referenced her used ellipses. Always 3 dots, always spaced too wide. Words capitalized mid-sentence, as if the writer had a habit of adding emphasis to random phrases. And the timestamps? always within 10 minutes of 6 period. The media lab was open then. Open. And nearly empty. Her fingers tapped across keys with rhythm. Not frantic, but precise. She pulled up the login log for the school's LAN. At 1:42 p.m., a device signed in from the Media Lab desktop using a general student account. 10 minutes later, a forum post appeared. Some people don't learn until it's too late. She leaned back in her chair, lips pressing together. The puzzle was solving itself. She began taking screenshots. Each post. Each timestamp. Each IP trace that wasn't smart enough to hide from internal admin records. A spreadsheet tracked the post contents. A side window held side-by-side syntax comparisons. The digital fingerprints of Logan's voice, even when cloaked. She created a new folder. Named it simply, Logan_Fall_23. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about making him suffer. It was about preserving truth. She zipped the folder. Screenshots, message logs, forum HTML saves, login charts. One file, October_week_log_match.zip. In a new browser tab, she opened her email. The two-line held only one name, owens.m@hollowcreekhs.edu. Subject, Heritage Week Archive Contribution. No message body. She attached the zip file, clicked send. For the first time in hours, Malika leaned back. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then slowly curled away. Her spine touched the back of the chair, and her shoulders relaxed. Just slightly. The room was still, but the balance had shifted. On the nightstand, her phone buzzed. She picked it up lazily, thumb dragging across the screen. Logan Whitaker's profile page. 3 status updates, taunts, quotes, passive digs, had vanished. Not deleted cleanly. Just gone. Her lips pressed into a line that wasn't quite a smile. Something had cracked. It wasn't fire or fury that brought him down. It was a blinking screen and the silence that followed. Thursday morning arrived with a crisp chill and a sky the color of wet slate. The hallway smelled faintly of apples and printer ink, the scent of freshly laminated flyers for the Heritage Week assembly clinging to bulletin boards and the air alike. Students moved in clusters toward the main lobby, where folding chairs had been set up in uneven rows, and the wide digital screen over the welcome desk flickered to life. Malika stood near the back, her hands tucked into her sleeves, her face unreadable. Around her, conversations buzzed. About outfits for Spirit Day, about who was performing, about a rumored slideshow of student memories. No one noticed the faint hum of the school server syncing at 8:03 a.m. The first few slides rolled out. Yearbook photos, club snapshots, a short video of the marching band. Laughter was easy, the energy high. The screen transitioned to the next image, then again and again. Then it froze. A pause, barely a breath. Then the screen flickered and changed. It started with a screenshot, a group chat, words circled in red. One name highlighted at the top, Logan Whitaker. The room didn't react right away, not out loud. Then came another screenshot, this time a forum post, traced to an internal IP. Then another, an insult, cloaked in humor, directed at a student who had been hospitalized last spring. Then more, layered, cruel, undeniable. Murmurs swelled. A few students gasped. Phones appeared. Eyes scanned the names. The screen advanced automatically, each slide more damning than the last. Troy Sanderson sat in the second row. His jaw tightened with every slide. He didn't look at Logan. Logan, for his part, stood slowly. The ease that usually wrapped around his shoulders was gone. His steps forward were stiff, defensive. His voice, when it came, cracked at the edges. "Who did this?" he barked. "Turn that off." No one moved. He turned, eyes sweeping the crowd, looking for someone, anyone, to back him up. His friends sat stone-faced. The girls who had once giggled at his every comment avoided eye contact. Kayla Chen stood near the edge of the hallway, her arms folded. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away. The screen kept going, Racist jokes. Screenshots of locker messages drafted before they appeared. Forum posts traced to a Media Lab account with timestamps neatly lined up next to Logan's class schedule. Then, a voice cut through the tension. Not loud, not angry. This content, Ms. Owens said, stepping forward from the side, was submitted anonymously, with full server log access. She held a folder in one hand, heavy with printed evidence. Her glasses rested low on her nose. Her voice didn't shake. All activity, she continued, has been verified and tied to login credentials issued to Logan Whitaker. Logan stared at her, mouth open, eyes wide. That's not. He stopped. Because it was. Ms. Owens didn't say more. She didn't need to. Troy stood. He didn't look at Logan. He just stepped back, his chair scraping lightly against the tile. Then another student stood. Then another. No one said anything. But no one stood with Logan. Logan's face drained of color. For the first time he had no words. No smirk. Just shaking hands in a hallway that no longer bent to him. In the back of the room, Malika met his eyes. No anger. Just a quiet truth behind her gaze. Then she walked away. Justice didn't roar. It whispered. And that was enough. Friday arrived quietly. A silver fog hung over Hollow Creek's courtyard, softening the hard lines of buildings and muffling the usual morning shuffle of students. Yellow leaves drifted down in slow spirals, gathering in corners like they'd agreed to meet there. It was the final day of Heritage Week, but the usual fanfare had thinned. No music piped from the intercom. No colorful streamers, just muted voices, soft footfalls, and something else. Something weightless but present. A shift. Malika moved through it with the same steady gait she always had. Her backpack slung over one shoulder, hoodie sleeves pushed to the elbows, eyes level but distant. The stares she used to absorb like secondhand smoke had quieted. Some people still looked, but when they did, it was different now. Some nodded. Some smiled, faint and real. She didn't return them. Not yet. At the main office window, a printed notice was taped to the glass. Logan Whitaker. Temporary suspension, pending further investigation. The font was bold, but not sensational. Just a formality. Still, it stood like a monument. Logan was still on campus that morning, clearing out his locker under administrative escort. He walked alone, his usual entourage orbiting somewhere else now. A few glanced his way. None stopped. His backpack sagged on one side. His hoodie hung like armor that didn't quite fit. His eyes never met anyone's. When he passed Malika in the hallway, there was no confrontation, no insult. Just silence. She didn't slow. She didn't gloat. Her gaze moved past him like he was a leaf caught in wind. Later, in the cafeteria, she sat at her usual table. The one in the corner, near the vending machine. For the first time, someone joined her. Kayla. She didn't speak right away. She just sat down, unzipping her lunch bag, glancing at Malika once. Then again. Finally, a breath. You didn't have to do all that. Malika didn't look up from her tray. I know, but I'm glad you did. They didn't say anything else for a while. The noise of the cafeteria filled the space between them, not loud, not chaotic. Just students being students again. Ms. Owens passed by a few minutes later, clipboard in hand, cardigan sleeves rolled neatly to her forearms. She paused beside their table, just long enough to be noticed. Some storms don't need thunder, she said softly, eyes meeting Malika's for only a second. Then she moved on. Malika didn't answer, not with words, but as she reached for her juice box, her fingers paused. Her eyes softened, and when no one was looking, she allowed herself a smile. Barely there, barely visible. Just enough. After lunch, she walked outside. The fog had lifted, leaving the campus bathed in pale sun. Wind tousled the ends of her hair. A few students lounged on the benches. Others walked past her without a second glance. No one whispered. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. One message. No name. You gave me the courage. Thank you. She stood still for a long moment, thumb hovering above the screen. Then she closed her eyes and the corners of her mouth curved. Not in triumph, but in quiet understanding. She didn't need to reply. The silence said everything. She never raised her voice, never pointed a finger. Yet by week's end, the noise around her had stilled, and eyes once full of judgment now softened in passing. What Logan tried to control with fear, Malika unraveled with quiet observation, patience, and truth stitched through silence. Justice didn't need to be loud. It only needed to be seen. Sometimes, the strongest stand is the one taken without stepping forward. If this story stirred something in you, consider being that quiet strength for someone else. Because real change often begins in silence.